Hi there, and welcome to the Surviving Trauma Stories of Hope podcast. In this episode, I welcome Lois Hollis to the podcast. Lois is an educator, counsellor, and filmmaker. Today, we discuss shame and guilt. According to Lois, shame and guilt reinforces each other to produce negative emotions such as anger, depression, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and the like. She believes that they infiltrate our emotions with stealth precision that causes our struggles from low confidence to suicide. As an educator, counselor, and filmmaker, Lois exposed the shame and guilt secrets so we can identify, release, and avoid them. During our discussion, we will touch on her personal story, and she will share how the unprocessed emotions from her childhood eventually caught up with her at age 50. Despite her many accomplishments in her professional and personal life, her abusive childhood traumas began to outweigh her vivacious lifestyle. Lois succumbed to guilt-ridden depression, heart and liver disease, 30 years of migraine headaches, and structural deformities. Her physicians told her that she could not live past 50 years, but she was determined to do so. Lois soon discovered that her emotional and physical health intricately weave themselves to produce health or disease. Lois then moved to Sedona, Arizona, where she uncovered shame-guilt secrets, her ability to write light language poetry, and discovered the doctor who helped her restore her health. Her desire to understand and heal the body continues today at age 77, and we have the privilege of having her join us. Lois is beautiful, intelligent, funny, and inspiring. It was a pleasure to talk to her on our podcast and have her share her vast knowledge and experience with us. If you have ever experienced negative emotions like shame, guilt, then this is the episode for you. Enjoy this episode, and thank you to my listeners for joining me on this journey. Comment on the posts on Instagram and Facebook on the My Centered Life pages, and let me know what you think of our episode. Stay tuned, and as always, keep listening. Hi, Lois. Welcome. Thank you so very much for joining me today and for connecting with me and for accepting my invitation to come on the podcast. I'm really happy to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I appreciate the interview because without you, I can't get my message out. Thank you for helping me to do my job.
Perfect. I think it's...
Yes, it is perfect. It is the magical world of podcasting.
Yes. And as you know, I open up my podcast to others who have survived trauma and others who have a message and a story of hope that they want to share. And so I'm very excited to hear your story and your messages today. So thank you. I know who Lois is, but tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, I am 77, so therefore I could spend a few hours, but I'll be brief. I mean, you do a lot in 77 years, let me tell you.
I want to be as fabulous and as radiant as you at 77. That is all I'm saying. I'm still stunned.
And you
I
can
can't
do
believe
it.
it.
Well, believe it, because everything's possible. Anyway, I've always wanted to be in the helping field. I remember, I don't know much about my childhood because it was very abusive. And you know how that goes. You just put it away because that's the only way you can survive. But it starts haunting you in your middle years, like 50 or so. Anyway, I started as a nurse's aide at 12. They called us Pinkies. So I've always been in the healing profession. And I graduated then into nursing, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm still in the healing nursing field, not active as a nurse, but once a nurse, always a nurse, like a school teacher. A teacher is always a teacher. So that's my realm. My life has always been helping, assisting others, and making sure that their health is optimal. Many of my memories came back to me when I was 50. I always had headaches. I had 30 years of migraines. I had dyslexia. I had Irlen syndrome, but I didn't know what it was until I was 50 because no one knew about it. If you hold a book up, the words keep moving, and therefore you can't read. But, 60 years ago, they didn't know such things. So
Yes.
I would hold the book up to read in front of the class, and I would ask the teacher, the nun, I said, how do you stop the words from moving? And they went, I got a big slap because they thought I was joking. I'm like,
yeah,
how do you stop the words from moving? So they sent me to the back of the class. Then the next day they said, no shenanigans, you have to read again. So I turned the book upside down. I'm very creative. So I thought if I turned the book upside down, the words would stop moving, right? I mean, makes sense to me.
What did that nun have to say?
Another slap.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So I was labeled stupid because I couldn't read. And I couldn't write very well because I was extremely dyslexic. However, I did not know I had like 4 or 5 brain injuries from all the abuse and the, falling down on cement and things of that sort. So somehow I wanted to tap dance. All I wanted to do was tap dance. So I began tap dancing somewhere around that time, and I danced until I was in high school. And I do believe that's what helped. And so the most amazing thing to me was I received a letter in the mail saying that I was accepted into the University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League college. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm not stupid. How did that happen?
Yeah. The ignorance that came with the times.
Yeah. But the nice thing was they left me alone because I was too stupid to be taught. So the great thing was I was able to get information on my own, which was much better than some of the schooling. Anyway, I had, and that's not necessary to mention, but I had a near-death experience somewhere around that time. So I think God sort of raised me. And, not necessary, but that's, I think, how I made it. I was just given information all the time, and I didn't have to read these books because I couldn't read them anyway. And somehow I excelled. I created the first kidney hemodialysis unit in the country in 1966. Then we had a hepatitis epidemic there, and I was able to stop it. And that again started another, lecture series within the United States. And I started the American Holistic Nurses and Technicians Organization. So my life has always been about first, but also healing in another way. Like I started this, I started that. If I saw a need, I started the organization. So that brings me to where I am today, that I saw shame guilt as the chief offender of consciousness. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why isn't this a study? This should be a study. And it wasn't. So I said, okay, well, then I'll just have to start one.
And I want to dive into that. But first, before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, so we touched on your childhood traumas, and you mentioned some of the injuries that you had and how you had carried that throughout your life. And it brought you to a place where you discovered shame, guilt, and also holistic healing, right? Because you didn't even realize that you had all of these traumas that happened to you as a child, and you only really found out as an adult.
And that's typical. And the fact that I had symptoms of dyslexia and other brain injury problems in the 40 years ago, people never talked about such things. So it wasn't like, oh, well, that kid's got a problem, whatever. I mean, so it was not even mentioned. So in a way, I was blessed because I didn't realize I was sick. I never thought I was sick. I just had a headache. It's interesting. But anyway, so somewhere in my 50s, I became very depressed. And I should have had because of all the traumas to the point of suicide. I didn't commit suicide, obviously, but I thought about it because the world would be a better place without me. And people say,
No.
how can you think that? And I
Yes.
said, a person that has suicidal tendencies really feels that unworthy, that they shouldn't even be a human. And I really want to mention that because that's true. And that's a horrible feeling place to be in, especially because it made no sense, because I did all these wonderful things. And then I felt I was so unworthy. So thinking you did all these wonderful things, does it make you feel worthy?
Yeah.
So get that guilt out of your mind, people. And you can
And-
tell yourself all these wonderful things about yourself, but you still won't feel worthy.
So I remember that you suffered from depression, you suffered from migraines, anxiety. At that time, you discovered that as a child, as a result of the abuse, you had a brain injury, you had a broken
bones,
jaw, broken ribs,
jaw, broken neck.
That for me was a shocker, because how on earth did you survive?
From a broken neck, you die, but God sent me back. So that's God's doing. But I carried the physical problems of it. So, because, like I was crooked or I was bent over and all these situations that, carry with those broken bones and jaw problems, etc. Also, I had heart problems too, because I had a congenital mitral valve deformity from my parents. They had that as well. Anyway, so I was led to a chiropractor healer person.
Yes.
And he was able to, because he's quite different than the typical, he's very intuitive. And he helped put my bones, adjusting them back together. Okay, it took some years.
Yeah.
You're still working on my jaw right now, but it can happen.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to address is that the emotional impact. You can't just do the physical, you have to do the emotional as well. I was concerned because I have 3 beautiful daughters that God gave me. And I said, I can't die because I got to raise my children. I'll die later.
God, that's between you and me. I'm going to die later. Yes.
Yeah. But I got to do this first because God gave me that. And then when I found this healer chiropractor person, I said, oh, I don't even have to die. I can heal. How cool is that?
Yes.
So I changed my mindset because it was possible. And I knew it was. And when they said you're going to die, I was like 55. I just said, well, that's probably true, but there probably is another way. And I just haven't figured it out. So I really never gave up. I think that's what it is.
And when you say they, this is the doctors who was telling you this. They were saying you were having all of these physical problems.
You can't live with them.
And I'm like,
you're right. But I don't think I'm dying. So adios. So what I really want to say is that no matter how bleak it is, God is there, or spirit, or another place, however people want to place it. And if you have more jobs to do on earth, God has enough angels in heaven. We need some angels here. So I'm like, I want to help and be in service to others. And you find a way. Nothing is incurable. Exactly. Really, there is nothing incurable. Even though everybody tells you no. Just say, well, their no means they just don't know any better.
Yeah.
But we know people that know better. And I found them.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Is that when they say no, you'll say, wrong answer. I'll find somebody that says yes. And I know I needed help, but you need the physical help as well. So when the physical health healed more rapidly when I healed emotionally.
Yes,
So you,
that makes perfect
yeah,
sense
yeah.
because the two
So
are so closely
are
connected.
so close together. So that's what I want to say. Now, what I did was I kept on talking to therapists, and that did help. Okay, I didn't want to commit suicide anymore, but
Right. So
I,
that was your tools, reaching out and going to therapists to help you
and other
on
people,
an
but
emotional,
no
yeah,
level.
yes,
But it hit, like I got second base. It didn't bring me home. It was like, okay, that's interesting, but it's not like dong. It isn't like going to totally work here. Like I'm better, but it's still not working. So I
mm-hmm.
decided to talk to myself.
Yes,
So I said, hi, instead of talking about my depression to somebody, I would say,
yes,
hi, depression. How are you? Thank you so much for talking with me. So
yeah,
that's what I did. I self-healed. I talked with my emotions and they talked back to me. And they're the ones that held the shame of the abuse. So they were able with me to release the shame. Once I was releasing the shame, I was healing. And then I came to realize that shame guilt is an energy, like love is an energy.
yes,
Love makes you feel happy and positive and joyful, and I can do anything.
yes,
But shame guilt is an energy that changes our body. And that's why it is necessary to release it in the healing. What happens to you when a virus comes into your computer?
oh, it creates so much havoc.
Okay, we are crystalline. Our human body is crystalline. We are a computer in that aspect. We have meridian lines. You're a learned person. You understand about the meridian lines, the energy lines within us.
Yes, the chakras.
Yes, yes, we're energy people. So what happens when a negative, destructive, unwanted energy hits our body? It changes it like it does to the computer. It changes our positive emotions into negative ones. Our compassion turns to depression. Our intuition turns to anxiety. And our passion turns to anger, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yes.
why don't you just get rid of the shame guilt?
But now, I mean, out of all of the emotions that we feel, why did you choose to rid yourself of shame guilt? Is that the two that was most prevalent stemming from your childhood trauma?
Shame guilt comes from any trauma, even if someone takes your lollipop away from you when you're 2 years old. Okay.
Yes.
Shame guilt is the only obstacle in our life. It affects everything. It changes your mind from being positive into confusion because the energy distorts it. It changes your spiritual direction as well. Like God has
Yes.
a cell phone and you have a cell phone and you can talk to God or spirit. But shame guilt puts static on the line that you can't talk to God. So shame guilt does everything wrong. It distorts our whole being. It changes our gallbladder so it doesn't receive the right signals to digest our food. It changes our lungs so it doesn't permeate the CO2 and the oxygen. So if you want to stop a problem, you have to stop it at its source. Because I have had people come to me and they said, I've been dealing with depression for 10 years and everybody tells me to manage it. Can we just get rid of it? And I
Yes.
said, you will only get rid of it when you get rid of the shame guilt that's causing it.
That makes sense.
And yes, and another reason is that shame guilt is common in everyone's life, but it's not normal. And that's how I healed, because I realized that shame guilt is not of humanity. It's an outside energy force. and we can kick it out of us. And once we are whole within ourselves, then we start to heal. Because every time we start to heal, the shame guilt starts destructing us.
Right.
And you've heard people say, I get so far, then I get back. Then I get so far, and then I get back.
Yes. 2
That's
steps
why.
forward, 5 steps back.
5 steps backwards. And I'm just depressed over it. And you should be depressed. You know, we try so hard to be healthy. We try to get rid of the bad feelings we've had. We try to, forgive, and we try to do this. And then the next day we're like back down again. And then we're more depressed because we tried to do something and it didn't work. I'm telling you, it's not going to work until you get rid of the shame guilt. So it makes you feel better.
So then how do we move past shame guilt in our own lives? Where do we start?
We start by this. Shame is in the unconscious mind and guilt's in the conscious mind. 2 different locations, same energy. Now, why is that true? As a medical field, if you have a bacteria in your brain, they call it meningitis. If you have the same bacteria in your lungs, they call it pneumonia.
Yes.
If you have the same bacteria in your liver, they call it hepatitis. Same bacteria in your gallbladder, they call it cholecystitis. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? It's not the cause. They're just naming it different because it's in different locations. So I'm telling you, shame guilt is the same.
Mm-hmm. And it manifests itself as depression.
Either shame or guilt or depression or anxiety or whatever. By other 1,000 emotions there are. It's in procrastination. Fear is shame. Everything is. So the first way to get out of this mess is to realize shame guilt is the same energy. So people say, oh, shame is bad, guilt is good. Well, you're never going to get resolution on that one because your brain's torn.
If I think about it in my life, I feel like I've experienced shame and I've experienced guilt. But so it's interesting for me that you bring the 2 together.
And how does that change you?
Experiencing shame and experiencing guilt?
Yeah, no, shoot. I want to talk faster than I am because I get so excited about it because it helps people realize that shame guilt is the same. It's the same energy, only you're experiencing it differently, but it's the same. Shame is in the unconscious and guilt's in the conscious. You have shame when you're sleeping and guilt when you're awake. And that's why people don't remember the shame. So the first step is to realize they're the same energy. So your brain isn't split because a lot of people say shame is bad and guilt is good. We need guilt to be more. I'm going, no, you don't. You just need a good common sense. I'm on this podcast not because I feel guilty if I don't. I like it because it's the right thing to do. Yes. So we don't need guilt to be a motivator. If you do, just kick it out. Just do it because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
Or don't do it because it's the wrong thing to do.
Yes.
Trying to make it simple because it's made to be so invasive and complicated that people go, I can't even deal with that because it's too complex. No, it isn't. It makes you complex because culture has made it complex. Yeah. So shame, guilt is the same. And people say, oh, I can't get rid of guilt. I can't get rid of my guilt. And never say my guilt. Say the guilt. Never own it. It's not your shame and it's not your guilt. It's not yours to own.
Okay? That is really good advice. Sort of look at it objectively. It's something over there that you can recognize. And so I hear you saying that there must be this awareness within us.
Exactly. That's first step. Yeah. First step is the awareness. And that's why I call myself a teacher, because we don't know.
Yeah.
But now you know. People say, I can't get rid of guilt. I can't get rid of guilt. And I said, you're right. You will never, ever, ever get rid of guilt, no matter how many courses you sign up for, how many workshops you do, or how many videos you listen to. The only way you'll get rid of the guilt is get rid of the shame that's making the guilt. Do you see what a relief that is?
No, for sure. But I hear that you're saying there's this awareness that I have, first of all, these emotions, and secondly, the ability to identify them.
Yes, when
Because
you
I
call
think
it
most
out,
people, they will live
yeah,
with shame or they will live with guilt, but they might not know that that's the case because they haven't identified their own emotions.
exactly. So that's what we're doing here. We were starting at number one. How do I start? You start by shame and guilt are not mine to own or to give. Okay,
Fantastic.
it's an outside energy put upon humanity. Okay, the second awareness is we, humanity, does not need shame or guilt to live. Shame, guilt energy is sort of like a parasitic energy that feeds off of us. It needs you. You don't need it. So what do you
Yes.
do with a parasite? You kick it out.
Yes.
Okay. What do you do when you have an enemy? You have to get to know what the enemy does, right? How are you going to defeat your enemy?
Yes.
So I'm like, you have to know what your enemy is. And if shame guilt is your enemy, I'll teach you how it works. So you can kick it out and identify it because then you won't have an enemy.
I like it.
Yeah. So that is step number one, because people have to know their enemy. And especially people in trauma that you're working with. Shame is 90%. It's so huge because we are victimized. Anybody who's victimized, bullied, carries the shame guilt energy from their accuser. Okay. Yeah, that's something everybody knows, but I'm at least naming it. That's why they feel bad, because they have this energy in them. The energy makes them feel bad. You know, when you go visit somebody, you really feel happy. Like I feel happy with you. And some people I go with, I don't feel so happy with you. It's their energy. Okay. When you have shame, guilt energy, you don't feel happy. You feel depressed. I can't do anything. And you go, that is not me. That is shame, guilt. Get away.
Yes. Not today,
Okay.
devil. Not today.
Exactly. Not today or not tomorrow, but right now you got to get out. That's huge. Now, shame, guilt energy only has one defect. It's in detection.
Yes.
When you detect it, it has to leave.
And that
You
is so
remember?
important because, if I think about my corporate career, one of the things we used to do was we used to give our employees an ethics vocabulary so that they would be able to identify their emotions when it came to certain unethical behaviors, but it empowered them because they
Exactly.
didn't have to feel like they didn't know what was happening to them, or maybe that they were just feeling bad, but they could say, I don't like that you made me feel like this. And
And that
therefore,
behavior is
yes,
this. And I
yes,
don't accept that behavior.
and I don't
So,
accept it. Yes,
and that's brilliant because that's exactly what we're doing in shame and guilt. But our culture, no matter where you live, has used shame, guilt behaviors to control us, to keep us whatever. That's a whole nother story.
yeah.
So we need to identify it and make decisions on our logic, not shame, guilt behavior. Okay.
And that's important because that again for me comes back to separating yourself from your thoughts, your emotions, and the outside world, and being able to see them and identify them for who they are, because that's really the seat of empowerment.
Yes, you're exactly right. So that is step number one.
Okay.
It's an outside energy
Right.
that you don't have to accept.
Nice.
Oh, are
Yes.
we going to win every time? No, we're just babies on this right now. So I tell people, okay, you feel not good enough. That's shame, guilt, energy. I found you. Get away. Now you can talk to your depression. Hi, I don't feel good enough. What do you want to tell me? I mean, now we can talk to our emotions.
Yes. So that brings me now to my next question, because Lois, you're an educator of shame, guilt. You're an author, and now you're also a filmmaker. And you have a documentary series in which you illustrate the dangers of avoiding shame, guilt in our lives. So tell us about your docu-series.
Well, there's two of them. The one is you might have seen Out of Discord into Harmony. That's where I talk to
Yes,
the inner parts of myself. And
that's
you can
right.
get that
That's the
on
one
my
I watched.
website, Out of Discord into Harmony. And that shows you that the inner critic inside of you is the shame guilt producer. So instead of throwing him away, you throw away the shame guilt, but you don't throw your inner critic away. You make friends with them. People say you're nuts. I'm going, no, you have to make friends with you. You can't cut your head off. You can't cut your arm off. You can't get rid of your inner critic. He's your friend. He's your protector. Only he's living in 50 years ago. He doesn't know it's the year 2021 that you grew up. It's a timeline. So you have to say, hi, inner critic, it's the year 2021. I'm an adult now. You don't have to babysit me 24 hours, 7 days a week, telling me I'm no good. Anyway, so that's a long story. And people can, view that video. Now, my next film is I'm Good. And that's showing people what shame, guilt, energy looks like, and how it makes the emotions change, how it impacts your brain, how it impacts your whole vital organs, your chakras, and showing that it is an outside energy. It's not part of humanity, and how to get rid of it. And we also have a talk with the inner critic too.
Okay. I like it. I like how you using the media of film to basically translate what we are supposed to do in our lives. It's interesting how you can take it and put it in film in a way that illustrates.
Everybody can use it. It's self-healing. Everybody can use it.
But the different characters, if you will. So even shame will have a character, and guilt will have a character, and we get to experience them from their own perspectives. So that for me is really interesting.
So I want to make it visible. Doris Day, I don't know if everybody remembers Doris Day. She said,
yes,
we believe what we see. So since we haven't seen shame, guilt, energy, we don't believe it is real. We know the effects of it, but we don't believe it's real. I mean, that's huge. So I need to make it visible to show how its destructive nature affects us.
I like it. You are such a light worker, which brings me to my next question. You do light language poetry. And for me, that is so interesting because I have heard of poets, writers who write from a spiritual place where they are guided in their writings. Now, you do light language poetry. Is that on the same level? Does that come from a spiritual source? Tell us about that.
Yes, I say I'm God's secretary. He talks and I write. That's how it is. And I believe all of us have this quality. The more shame, guilt, energy I've removed from my being, the more I could hear spirit. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Once I start removing it, I start writing from God.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
So that shows you how dangerous shame, guilt, energy is.
Yeah. Because without shame, guilt, the energy can flow easily through you.
Through your
And
chakras and everything.
exactly.
Yes.
And you won't have that disturbance on your spiritual heart that you feel when
Or
you're
your
carrying.
distortion,
Yes.
A lot of people write, but it's all distorted. You go, that doesn't make any sense. And they say, oh, it's from spirit. I'm going, well, it might be, but it's distorted. And it's distorted because shame, guilt distorts it like a computer, right?
Right.
It's not correct. It's distorted information. While I was in Sedona, I worked with several psychics to clear the shame, guilt. And once they did, they became much better and clearer channels.
Because there is such a close connection between the spirit world and this world.
We always are connected because we're living.
Yeah.
You know, God, our emotions are our life force energy. Without our emotions, we have no humanity. So the more that our emotions are covered in shame, guilt, energy, the less energy we do have. You'll find that the more shame, guilt, energy you get rid of, the more energy you have for healing.
Just on that point, I want to ask you, I mean, spending time with you, you are so vibrant and you are so energetic. Like it's infectious. Every time I speak to you, I have such a great time. You know, you have such a great energy. So how do you maintain such a positive attitude? Because surely once you've removed it, there's a possibility that it can come back.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't come back.
Okay, so it doesn't come back.
No, because you don't allow it. It's called identify, release, and avoid. People throw something at you and go, oh, no, I don't take that. Bye.
Okay.
Become smart.
Okay, I get it.
Become smart. You know, there's another saying, once you learn something, you can never unlearn it. Once you're smart, you don't get stupid.
I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell me, if people want to know more about shame, guilt, and the work that you do, where can they find you?
Okay, loishollis.com, LOISHOLLIS.com. The second step you can do is sign up for my ebook. It's on an autoresponder newsletter. It's 500 questions, one answer. So I show you 500 ways you can have shame, guilt, behavior come to you or use it on yourself. So after that 500 questions, one answer, you'll have an idea of what is shame, guilt behavior, because we don't know. We think it's normal.
Yeah. Especially if you've been living with it for a long time.
We all have been living with it for a long time. It's common, but it's not normal. So I'm saying to you, the behavior that you've been experiencing, it's not supposed to be. Yeah. And once you get rid of it, but you have to know it to get rid of it. Like you clean up the house, you have to actually pick up the things to throw away, right? You have to find them. Okay. Yes. So you have to find the shame, guilt to get rid of it.
And in your book, in your ebook, it's a free ebook. This we can find on your website.
Yes. And just sign up and you'll get 20 segments of 25 questions and answers. So it'll be like 4 months. So it takes a while to understand it all.
That's awesome.
Yes, it's very important to do this, and it's free. Why would you do it? Also, I schedule a 15-minute free talk with me because this is new information. People say, I don't want to sign up with a session because I want to talk with you first, and that's okay. Yes. And I do individual sessions at this point too.
Okay.
And also
they can do this also on
my website. Yeah. Okay. And I have my phone number that they can call me, and then they can get my spirit writings. Now, the interesting about the spirit writings, I have been told by others, is that it stops the shame, guilt energy. So when you're feeling the shame, guilt, start reading these light language writings, and it gets shame, guilt out of it because shame, guilt can't be in love energy.
Yes, because love conquers all.
Exactly. So love kicks out the shame, guilt energy. So read the writings.
Okay. Well, Lois, thank you. It has been such a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you for coming here and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with me and with the audience. I always believe that knowledge is power, and being
It
informed.
is.
Yeah. And being informed helps us, to make like better decisions in our own life. And knowing this information about shame, guilt can help so many people. So thank you very much. And thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being the light. And thank you for leading the way. It's been fantastic.
Thank you for receiving.
Yes.
Thank you for receiving.
It is only my pleasure.
God bless.
Take care. Bye.
That wraps up this podcast episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, please take a minute to give me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast directory so you don't miss an episode. Please consider following My Centered Life on Facebook and Instagram for daily inspiration. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. You can catch me again in the next episode. Same time, same place. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye.